Ever since I first discovered tetrachromacy, I've been fascinated by the possibility of experiencing tetrachromatic vision myself. The notion of perceiving an entirely new dimension of colors has captured my imagination and refuses to let go. Tetrachromacy is a rare genetic condition that grants a fortunate few the ability to distinguish far more colors than the average person in the visible light range, all thanks to just one additional type of color receptor in the eye. The leap from trichromacy, the typical human color vision, to tetrachromacy is monumental. It's akin to the difference between having a strong red-green color vision deficiency and possessing normal trichromatic vision. In other words, tetrachromats perceive an almost unimaginable welter of colors beyond what trichromats can see. This extraordinary ability arises from a fourth cone class in the eye, which peaks in sensitivity between the medium, green, and long red wavelength cones. This extra cone, commonly referred to as a yellow or mutated L or M cone, allows very few genetically gifted women to discern colors with a level of nuance inaccessible to trichromats. They can distinguish between hues that appear identical or nearly identical to us, revealing a rich and intricate world of color that most people cannot even dream of. Let's begin by focusing on the practical aspects of tetrachromacy and what you can expect from this video. In this video, I will introduce you to the basics of color vision and tetrachromacy. Unlike previous studies on tetrachromacy and higher dimensional color perception, I aim to be the first person to actually show you tetrachromatic colors. I achieve this by combining the usual trichromatic colors in unconventional ways to create a higher dimensional color vision, one dimension higher than trichromacy. This is why the video is designed for virtual reality. To experience the new tetrachromatic colors, you have to watch it with a VR headset. For those who don't have a VR headset, there's a second screen if you rotate this video by 180 degrees, which displays the impossible colors that are used in this video to functionally simulate tetrachromatic vision as temporal colors. Many studies detail what a yellow tetrachromat should be able to see, but none have visually demonstrated their color experience. You might think it's impossible to show tetrachromatic colors to trichromats because you simply cannot transform a trichromat into a tetrachromat. However, I'm here to challenge that notion. By cleverly utilizing lens and color filter technology, I've developed a form of tetrachromatic vision using only normal trichromatic vision by exploiting a convenient quirk of our color vision. In this video, unlike the studies I've mentioned, some of which are linked in the description, I will explain tetrachromacy on the basis of presenting actual tetrachromatic colors, thereby sharing a close to faithful but not identical simulation of my experience with artificial tetrachromatic vision with you. I'll first show you the colors and hues as I perceive them, concentrating mainly on tetrachromatic hues in this video, and then I'll explain how I achieve this augmented color perception and how you can understand it. My form of tetrachromacy is called true red tetrachromacy, where I simulate two types of red cone cells, one more sensitive to red light and the other more sensitive to yellow light. The first long wavelength, L cone type, which I refer to as the L plus cone class, peaks at roughly 620 nanometers and has true red as its primary color. The second L cone type, the L minus cone class, peaks at approximately 560 nanometers and has an orange vermilion as its primary color. I'll explain later exactly how I achieve this division without being a born retinal tetrachromat. Let's start simple with the tetrachromatic hues that I can see. While a trichromat perceives hues along a linear spectrum, I experience a plane of hues, which looks like this. Each hue isn't just a point on a line, but has a disk of neighboring hues. It's possible to transition from red to green without passing through the standard yellow. Trichromatic white becomes a distinct hue, as do all other trichromatic hues at different saturation levels. Essentially, all hues except for true red can be impossibly mixed with black or red. Don't worry if you can't immediately recognize the hues presented. It takes time, training, and experience to fully grasp these colors, especially because they involve impossible color combinations, where your left eye perceives a different color than your right eye. With true red tetrachromacy, I can perceive an additional dimension of hue, making hue a two-dimensional experience instead of one-dimensional. Each of these hues can transition to tetrachromatic white and vary in luminance. With this hue plane in mind, let's get a basic understanding of what color vision actually is and how it expands with each additional distinct cone type. This will help you understand the fantastical colors that you've just seen. To truly appreciate the exponential increase in color discrimination that comes with each additional cone class, let's start from the very basics of color vision. An individual without any cone classes or rods isn't just colorblind, they are entirely blind, incapable of perceiving light in any form. At least one class of photoreceptors is essential for light perception. Introducing a single cone class allows for the perception of light, rendering one a monochromat. However, even with this ability, distinguishing between different hues remains impossible. This limitation is explained by the principle of univariance, which states, among other things, that at least two distinct cone classes are necessary to perceive hues. This is because hue perception arises from the brain interpreting differences in signals between at least two types of cones. A monochromat's visual experience on a standard screen is limited to about 256 shades, essentially a grayscale spectrum without any hue. Their color space is one-dimensional, representing variations in luminance but lacking any concept of hue. Advancing from monochromacy to dichromacy introduces a second cone class. Take, for example, someone with deuteranopia, a strong red-green color vision deficiency where the medium wavelength green cone is absent. Such a dichromat can now perceive two main hues, yellowish and blue, along with an achromatic point that appears white. White introduced a new concept called saturation, where hues can be desaturated and turned into white, or saturated and turned into their pure forms. The introduction of hue transforms their color space into a two-dimensional plane. On a regular screen, a dichromat can discern approximately 65,000 colors and gradations. While this number might seem high, it pales in comparison to the 16 million colors that trichromats can perceive with the addition of the medium wavelength cone. A person with normal trichromatic vision doesn't just see more colors than a dichromat, they also gain the concept of a hue line and an additional type of saturation, which makes white appear more unique. The inclusion of the green-sensitive cone allows for the blending of green with any previously dichromatic color, vastly expanding the range of perceivable hues and colors. Whereas dichromats are limited to essentially two hues, trichromats experience a virtually infinite spectrum of hues, in addition to variations in luminance and saturation. Practically, however, this line of hues of course isn't infinite, because at one point hues will look identical to a trichromat if you zoom into the hue line long enough. Colors that appear yellowish to a deuteranope can be distinguished by trichromats as red, orange, yellow, lime, green, and numerous intermediary hues along that spectrum. Moreover, shades of cyan and magenta, which may look grayish, whitish, yellow or blue to such dichromats, are recognized as distinct hues by trichromats. Essentially, the two-dimensional color space of dichromacy evolves into a three-dimensional space in trichromacy, resulting in an exponential increase in the number of perceivable colors. At this point, a clear pattern emerges regarding how each additional cone class affects color perception. It increases the dimensionality of color vision by 1. And here you can think of color dimensionalities as equivalent to spatial dimensions. Starting from blindness, where there is no perception of color dimensions, we progress to monochromacy, which introduces a one-dimensional color space. Adding a second functional cone class leads to dichromacy, expanding the color space to 2 dimensions. With 3 cone classes, trichromacy further extends this to a 3-dimensional color space. Consequently, tetrachromacy, with its fourth cone class, results in a four-dimensional color space. This escalation in dimensionality also transforms the perception of hue, which is why the true red tetrachromatic hues that you can see here can only be represented on a 2D plane. In the dichromacy deuteranopia, hue is limited to just 2 points, typically yellowish and blue, due to the absence of the medium wavelength cone. Trichromacy enriches this experience by turning hue into a one-dimensional line, allowing for a continuous gradient of hues whose ends can be seamlessly joined to form a hue circle. Each additional cone type not only adds a dimension to color space, but also increases the complexity of hue perception. Therefore, in tetrachromacy, hue becomes two-dimensional, represented on a plane rather than a line, vastly expanding the palette of perceivable hues and also colors. I'm focusing on tetrachromatic hues here, because showing a four-dimension color space on a two-dimensional screen is extremely difficult. It's only possible if you disassemble the 4D color space into different and understandable parts and concepts. A tetrachromat with this enhanced color vision can distinguish about 4 billion colors on a tetrachromatic screen designed with 4 primary colors tailored to their unique vision. In trichromacy, each hue has linear neighbors. For example, yellow transitions smoothly to orange or lime along a line of hues. In contrast, a tetrachromat experiences each hue as being surrounded by a disk of unique hues, as I've mentioned earlier. For them and for me, hue is not just a linear concept, but a circular or disc-shaped one, encompassing an entire plane of saturated hue variations that can be desaturated and turned into tetrachromatic white and made dimmer until they turn into black. Thus, the common notion that tetrachromats can just distinguish reds, yellows and greens more finely is a significant understatement. In reality, tetrachromats perceive an entirely new dimension of hues and colors, accessing a richness and nuance that trichromats cannot even conceive. This is why most videos on tetrachromacy, a few of my older videos on tetrachromacy included, either heavily understate tetrachromacy or are completely wrong about how it actually works. A tetrachromat's expanded color space allows them to experience hues in ways that are fundamentally different, revealing a world of color that is both higher dimensional and more detailed than what is accessible to typical human vision. Now that we've laid the groundwork on tetrachromacy, let's revisit the initial premise of this video. While the concept of tetrachromacy is fascinating, understanding it theoretically is quite different from experiencing it firsthand, like the tetrachromatic hues that you can see here. Given that functional tetrachromacy at the retinal level is typically the result of a fortunate genetic variation that's statistically only possible for women, you might wonder how I can claim to have transformed myself into a tetrachromat, especially as a man for whom it's genetically implausible to inherit tetrachromacy. To grasp how I, as a trichromat, could develop tetrachromatic vision, we need to consider a remarkable aspect of human color perception, the chromatic redundancy of our two eyes. If you close one eye, you'll notice that you can still perceive the colors normally, as long as both eyes are functioning correctly. This redundancy implies that the color information from one eye is sufficient for full color perception, meaning we can manipulate the color input to one eye without impairing our overall ability to see colors. This means that, very technically speaking, we are hexachromats. We just don't notice this in everyday life because the color information sent by both eyes' color receptors is usually the same. Furthermore, by carefully designing color filters for each eye that are spectrally opposing and complementary, we can adjust the color vision of both eyes without substantially diminishing our color discrimination. A classic example of this concept is red cyan anaglyph 3D glasses. These glasses introduce a unique color vision deficiency to each eye. The left eye becomes effectively red monochromatic, while the right eye experiences protanopia, red blindness. Remarkably, when the brain combines these two deficient color inputs, it can reconstruct the full range of trichromatic colors you can normally see with a little bit of training. This form of binocular color fusion doesn't resemble normal color mixing, instead it results in what I refer to as impossible color combinations. For instance, with red cyan anaglyph classes, yellow may appear as an impossible blend of red and green. However, while these classes are an intriguing novelty, their crude absorption filters are designed to maintain trichromatic vision but with such impossible color combinations instead of normal trichromatic colors. Red cyan anaglyph classes are too rudimentary to significantly enhance our color vision. However, by understanding how these classes still allow you to see colors trichromatically, it paves the way for understanding my artificial form of tetrachromacy. By designing more sophisticated filter pairs, we can create conditions that allow us to distinguish colors tetrachromatically using only impossible trichromatic color combinations. To understand how this is achievable, consider that we can attain functional trichromacy using only impossible dichromatic color combinations in VR. I have a detailed video on this topic, but here's a brief recap. By shifting the dichromatic color space into the third, trichromatic color dimension, we combine dichromatic colors in novel and impossible ways, enabling trichromatic color discrimination. Although red may not appear as red in this artificial trichromacy, you can still distinguish it from yellow or green because red appears as a black yellow. Yellow remains as normal yellow and green appears as a blue yellow. These impossible dichromatic color combinations are unique hues, distinguishable from any other dichromatic color or impossible color combination. Over time, as one becomes accustomed to these impossible hues, they become immediately noticeable and identifiable, exhibiting only a slight reduction in vividness compared to normal trichromatic colors. Consequently, an individual trained in this artificial form of trichromacy, like myself, can distinguish colors nearly as effectively as a typical trichromat. We can apply the same principle to trichromatic colors using specialized filters that effectively split the red cone class into two. This simulates an additional yellow cone class alongside a true red cone class, thereby expanding our color perception to a moderately to strongly functional form of non-retinal tetrachromacy. This type of artificial non-retinal tetrachromacy, which I term true red tetrachromacy, is similar yet distinct from retinal yellow tetrachromacy. Yellow tetrachromacy is believed to be the most common form of retinal, though not always functional, tetrachromacy, if one can even label tetrachromacy as common. I achieved this artificial true red tetrachromacy by creating a more specialized version of the lens pair of red cyan anaglyph 3D glasses. In my custom true red tetrachromacy glasses, the left lens appears red, but functions as a true red filter by absorbing all wavelengths below approximately 620 nanometers and only letting true red light pass through. The right lens, while it looks cyanish, is actually designed to allow yellow, orange and vermilion light to pass through, in addition to all the short wavelength colors, blocking only the true red light above approximately 620 nanometers. These two lenses are spectrally opposed and complement each other, and together they enable me to simulate additional cone classes, a yellow L- and a true red L+ cone, in addition to my normal medium wavelength M and short wavelength S cone classes. The lenses create a new type of color opponency, where true red is introduced and isolated as a new primary color in the left eye, a primary color which can be put geometrically perpendicular against any other anomalous trichromatic color of the right eye. With this setup, my left eye perceives the world in true red monochromacy, acting as a dedicated color channel for true red light. Meanwhile, my right eye sees colors normally except for true red wavelengths, rendering its color vision slightly to moderately protanopic, true red deficient. Although this lens pair might seem like merely a sophisticated version of red cyan anaglyph 3D glasses, it goes far beyond that. The ability of my left eye to independently capture every shade of true red allows these hues to mix with every one of the slightly protanopic colors perceived by my right eye, enhancing my overall color discrimination. Therefore, my left eye functions as an additional long wavelength cone type for longer long wavelengths, in addition to the slightly impaired long wavelength cone type of my right eye that's more sensitive to shorter long wavelengths. I am perceiving new color information by breaking this chromatic redundancy of my eyes. This concept should sound familiar because it essentially mirrors how functional retinal yellow tetrachromacy operates, just binocularly and not retinally. As I've mentioned before, in yellow tetrachromacy, the fourth cone class is a mutated medium wavelength, M, or long wavelength, L cone class, that is shifted to peak between the standard M and L cone sensitivities. While the spectral sensitivity curves of true red tetrachromacy differ from those associated with yellow tetrachromacy, they result in very similar enhancements in color discrimination. In both yellow tetrachromacy and true red tetrachromacy, a screen requires 4 primary colors to display the full spectrum of tetrachromatic colors. Interestingly, the peak wavelengths of these 4 primaries are similar in both cases, approximately at 450 nanometers, 530 nanometers, 610 nanometers, and 640 nanometers for the short, medium, mutated, and long cone classes, respectively. The medium, mutated, and long cone classes should have narrower wavelength ranges on a tetrachromatic screen to prevent spectral overlap, which is why a standard RGB screen is vastly insufficient. It cannot even begin to represent the new dimension of colors accessible to tetrachromats. The red subpixel of an RGB screen generally encompasses both the yellowish and reddish dimension that I and a yellow tetrachromat can see. For a functional retinal yellow tetrachromat, the range between red, yellow, and green light is experienced as trichromatic rather than dichromatic, as it is the case for normal trichromats. This is because tetrachromats have 3 distinct cones sensitive in this range instead of just 2. Consequently, they can easily distinguish a pure yellow light from a red-green mixture. They can also perceive yellow-green hues untainted by red and red-yellow hues untainted by green. Moreover, they can see a unique tertiary color in this range, a red-yellow-green, that is an entirely new hue concept absent in normal trichromatic vision, a maximal stimulation of 3 cone types that doesn't equate to white. To a yellow tetrachromat, these unique yellow colors appear vastly different and possess unique hues, even though they may appear identical or metameric to trichromats when mixed in just the right way. So how does true red tetrachromacy compare? While I don't perceive entirely new colors with true red tetrachromacy, I experience previously impossible trichromatic color combinations that feel like entirely new colors because these combinations were previously unattainable. With true red tetrachromacy, the red-yellow-green range is also perceived as trichromatic. I can distinguish a pure yellow light, unpolluted by green or true red, from a red-green combination without any yellow content. To my unaided eyes, and even to a camera's crude approximation of human color perception, both a red-green mixture and a pure yellow light appear identical or very similar, differing only slightly in hue and mostly in saturation and luminance. However, when wearing the true red tetrachromacy glasses, these colors become distinctly different. The pure yellow appears as a black yellow, while the red-green mixture manifests as an impossible red-green color combination. For example, the yellow on my screen is actually a red-yellow. Candlelight's yellow is a red-lime combination, and very few colors are pure yellow. To my naked eye, all these yellows look identical, or nearly so, but with the true red tetrachromacy glasses, each of these metameric colors reveals itself as a distinct and more saturated hue, just as described. A red-green combination is a similar color concept to the trichromatic magenta, a hue resulting from mixing 2 cone classes that have another cone class lying between them. The pure yellow I perceive with true red tetrachromacy is akin to the green M cone class in normal trichromacy because it lies between two other cone classes. That's why the red-yellow-green range is trichromatic for me and a yellow tetrachromat. Furthermore, just as adding the green M cone class to someone with the deuteranopia significantly expands their ability to distinguish colors across the spectrum, a similar transformation occurs in both true red and yellow tetrachromacy. Not only can I perceive a red-lime combination, but I can also distinguish a red cyan, which looks white to my unaided eyes, from a tetrachromatic white, which appears to me as a red-white with true red tetrachromacy and strikingly more white than a normal trichromatic white. I can see a vast plane of hues such as pure magentas and red magentas, red blues and pure blues, red greens and pure greens, red cyans and pure cyans, red yellows and pure yellows, and so on, as well as every intermediate hue. Almost every normal color, except for true red, can exist either in its pure form, without any red, or mixed with red, including even trichromatic white. Trichromatic white, which lacks true red, presents itself to me as a unique hue. Consequently, every normal trichromatic saturated and desaturated hue appears as a distinct hue to me. For example, while a light orange might simply look like a light orange to you, a slightly desaturated orange, it represents a unique hue to me because it's an orange, blended with the trichromatic white hue. It's challenging to even describe this hue. It's like a dark, cyanish, blackish light orange, similar in vividness to a normal yellow that's a mix between red and green. This difficulty in description underscores how hard it is to convey these color experiences verbally with just trichromatic color names. Even the impossible color combinations you currently see on the screen don't fully capture these sensations. The black shade of the true red lens in the true red tetrachromacy classes, for instance, appears not as a normal black, but as an impossibly black cyanish hue when directly and binocularly compared to the colors perceived by the second eye. So, the representation of the true red tetrachromatic hues that you can see here doesn't do my actual color experience any justice in the right color contexts and just approximates it. Furthermore, the myriad of tetrachromatic hues can interact and complement one another within the right color context, enriching the visual experience in ways previously unattainable. In dichromacy, such as in deuteranopia, color contrast is limited to a simple yellow-blue dichotomy. Trichromacy expands this by allowing any hue on the one-dimensional color wheel to be strongly contrasted with its complementary hue on the opposite side, or moderately and eventually weakly contrasted to increasingly less complementary hues along the hue line, enabling hues to influence and enhance each other when placed side by side. Tetrachromacy amplifies this concept dramatically by introducing an even wider and richer plane of hues, leading to color contrasts beyond our traditional perception and conception. For example, while in trichromacy the complementary color of yellow is blue, in tetrachromacy the opposite of a pure yellow can be hues like blue, red-green, red-blue, and many others. This means there are numerous hues that can oppose a pure yellow to varying degrees, strongly, moderately, or subtly, not only on a line but a plane, providing a vastly more complex and nuanced palette for color contrasts. With the additional unique tertiary hues, the concept of color opponency becomes a lot more complex. Returning to the spectral sensitivities of the cones in true red and yellow tetrachromacy, we notice that the red, yellow, and green cones have peak sensitivities that are very close to one another, especially in yellow tetrachromacy. They overlap quite a bit. While this proximity isn't inherently problematic for color perception, it presents significant challenges when it comes to creating or isolating the unique tetrachromatic hues that tetrachromats like myself can perceive. And it makes these hues appear more similar in unfavorable light conditions. This difficulty arises because most natural and artificial light sources emit light across broad wavelength ranges, rather than narrow specific wavelengths, or unnaturally apportioned wavelength combinations. For example, candlelight may appear yellowish to you, but it actually emits substantial amounts of red, yellow, and green, and a bit of blue light. To produce a pure yellow candlelight that exclusively stimulates the yellow cone without activating the red and green cones would require a light source emitting solely at the yellow wavelengths, a rarity in both nature and human technology. Similarly, generating a red-green light that doesn't stimulate the pure yellow cone is challenging due to the broad spectral emissions of natural light sources. Consequently, certain hues that are distinct and discernible to tetrachromats, such as vivid pure yellow or red-green combinations, are extraordinarily rare in both natural settings and human-designed environments. To a trichromat, these hues would appear identical to standard yellow, making them uncommon in color design and manufacturing. As a result, although tetrachromats like myself have the capacity to perceive an extraordinary dimension of additional hues and colors, these hues aren't commonly encountered in everyday life because we live in environments designed for normal trichromats. This is a problem that color vision deficient people also but inversely encounter in everyday life. If I spot a great and rare tetrachromatic color, it's often in an unfavorable color context that doesn't highlight it, so that it doesn't contrast against the surrounding colors as strongly as it could. A considerable amount of the tetrachromatic hues that I can perceive need to be intentionally engineered or synthesized for me to actually experience them. And in nature, I only see them rarely, at least in their strong and vivid forms. This scarcity is actually quite normal. Even within trichromatic vision, colors like deep blue, vivid magenta, pure luminous green, or intense cyan are exceptionally rare in nature, appearing primarily in certain flowers or relatively rarely in colorful sunsets, natural phenomena, and animals. These hues had to be artificially created or designed to become more accessible to us. Similarly, since every tetrachromatic color builds upon a trichromatic one, the original trichromatic colors are replaced by tetrachromatic counterparts, but not in equal measure across the spectrum. As a consequence, some tetrachromatic colors become exceedingly rare because an increased array of virtual colors must be distributed among the same finite set of physical objects. For individuals with red-green color blindness, the world predominantly appears in shades of yellowish, bluish, or white. Yellow and blue are ubiquitous and easily identifiable because they are the only hues perceivable. In Trichromacy, with its expanded dimension of color possibilities, objects exhibit more nuanced colors occurring at different frequencies and frequency combinations. Tetrachromacy amplifies this diversity to an extreme degree, but it also means that many tetrachromatic colors and hues are exceptionally rare, simply because there are so many more colors to perceive within the same number of physical objects. Due to the severe spectral overlap and proximity of the red, yellow, and green cones in both true red and yellow tetrachromacy, the rarity of these hues and colors is greatly amplified. Now, to a few more examples of how I see colors with true red tetrachromacy. So far, I haven't seen any commercially available paints or pigments that provide pure red-green or pure yellow hues. All the so-called yellow paints and pencils I've encountered are actually red-yellow, a distinct hue combining red and yellowish wavelengths. Moreover, standard RGB screens are incapable of displaying all the true red tetrachromatic colors I can see, and even my RGB camera cannot capture them accurately. This disparity extends to natural scenes as well. The sky isn't just blue. To my eyes, it's a blue hue infused with a significant amount of red. Human skin isn't merely orangish, but is more accurately described as a relatively balanced red-lime hue. Yellow flowers are actually red-yellow and contrast sharply against green, lime, red-green, and red-lime grass. Similarly, most foliage isn't simply green, lime, or chartreuse. These hues often contain varying degrees of redness. And while you might perceive a dark red leaf as a standard dark red hue, I see it as a bright red hue, with multiple different strong reds blended into it. Orange and yellow leaves and sticks amidst chartreuse, lime and green foliage stand out to me like glowing beacons due to the enhanced color contrasts afforded by my artificial tetrachromatic vision. There are many more examples I could give, but I'll save them for another video. This concludes my in-depth introduction to true red and yellow tetrachromacy. If you found some of the explanations or visualizations challenging, or if the impossible color combinations representing true red tetrachromatic hues were difficult to perceive, don't worry. That's entirely normal. Developing tetrachromatic vision is a complex process that requires time and patience. I've spent years cultivating this form of vision, and it took me at least 3 months of wearing the true red glasses daily for several hours before my brain fully adapted to this new way of seeing. Recognizing these impossible trichromatic color combinations as unique hues necessitates both time and a solid understanding of tetrachromatic colors. Your brain needs time to undergo neural plasticity, to rewire itself to recognize these new color experiences as distinct colors. It's also important to be creative in seeking out new colors every day to sufficiently stimulate this newfound tetrachromatic vision. In a sense, you have to actively search for these tetrachromatic colors. I've included links in the description to the 2 lenses I use for my true red glasses. This isn't a product placement, and you might find equally effective lenses from other suppliers. However, I can only vouch for the quality of the ones I've tested. I'm sure I've piqued your curiosity today. In upcoming videos, I'll delve even deeper into tetrachromacy in general and my form of true red tetrachromacy specifically. For example, what a rainbow looks like to a tetrachromat, how to understand the tetrachromatic 4D color space, why naming the tetrachromatic colors is so important, how the true red tetrachromatic colors look in real life, how they directly compare to the theoretical yellow tetrachromatic colors, and why tetrachromatic vision is even useful, and many more topics. So be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any new content. I am Oogway, and I will show you how to reshape and enhance your sensory experiences, because it is nothing but our senses that connect us to this world. Have fun watching and learning all these impossible colors. Thanks for watching.